everyone. This is W, host of the High Art on the Edge page. In today's event, I spoke with Mr. Melomania, DKFM DJ extraordinaire, Simon Leclerc. He shared his amazing and eclectic vinyl picks. In addition, he spoke about some of his memorabilia that he's been holding on to, including some t-shirts and ticket stubs. Finally, we have our first debate and shine a spotlight on a shoegaze album that was ranked in Pitchfork's 50 Best Shoegaze Albums of All Time. Do we have our first fight online, or do we see eye to eye? Sit back, pull up a drink, and enjoy my conversation with Simon Leclerc, Mr. Vinyl. Happy Sunday, everyone. June 4th. Hello to all. My name is W, host of the High Art on the Edge page. We are here with a very special guest, DKFM, legendary DKFM DJ, Simon Leclerc. We're back for another discussion of some great vinyl picks that he's going to share with you all, including some memorabilia as well. We're also going to talk about a top 50 shoegaze album and have a discussion about what we thought of these tracks on this album that is quite abrasive at times, noisy, very experimental. Mm-hmm. And we'll get into that later. But I want to start with this. Let me read this to you all. Shinzo Abe emerged with his tough stance against the North Korean affairs, etc., and took office as the prime minister in 2006. He called for the creation of a beautiful country by departing from the post-war regime to amend the Basic Act on Education. However, he resigned the following year to take responsibility for defeating the upper house election, as well as for health reasons. In December 2012, Shinzo Abe returned as the prime minister upon the LDP's substantial victory in the upper house election. Let's bring in Simon Leclerc. Simon, do you know what I was talking about there? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, because I read the same thing related to the album that you did.
We're going to get back to what I just read.
Yeah, because there was a hiatus by this particular artist who we'll be discussing later on that they then came back and did a political message and track and or album in relation to this and got dropped from their record label. And so was told basically, we're not going to release any more of your music because of your political views. And so we're burying the lead a little bit. So yes, that'll be the album we talk about later on from the Pitchfork list. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us in today's discussion, episode number 6, Simon Says Vinyl. Feel free to drop any comments. Let us know what you're spinning on your turntable, CD player, Spotify, Bandcamp. We want to hear from you. Simon.
Colin's here. Hey, Colin. I saw a name come up finally. I'm all excited. Yay, I saw a name.
Before we begin, Simon, give us a little update on what you've been up to and anything else you want to share.
Yeah, I mean, the DJing is still going on with Melomania Safety Zone on DKFM. And so I've got another show coming up this Thursday at its usual time. So there's so much new music coming out right now that I've basically got enough material for 2 episodes. So I got to pare that down to 1 hour and the next day or so to record it and send it off to Greg. Other than that, the psychotherapy business is busy. And so there's lots of people that need mental health support. And I'm doing my best to get in there and get things going. So basically, I've been saying this to everyone. If you know anybody looking for some mental health support in Ontario, in the province that I'm in. I'm doing online, I'm doing in person in Toronto. And so if anybody needs any help, I'm here. And at this point, because I'm still an intern, my rates are roughly half of what other people's are. So I'm able to support at a nice rate for the wallet in comparison to other psychotherapists. So yeah, that's been a big part.
How would people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm on Facebook, and so people have been DMing me on Facebook just under Simon Leclerc. I'm the fellow with the weird medieval helmet covering his face. If you're looking for me. Other than that, I've actually people contact me over Instagram, and so I've got my Melamania Safety Zone spot there that you can find me through. So those are the two ways that people have reached out the most. And yeah, that's been the way that folks have reached out in social circles as of this point in time. So anyways, but yeah, I'm here if anybody needs any help.
If you feel comfortable answering this question, I'd love to get your opinion on this. Mm-hmm. And I don't look at this to have you, I don't think you're bragging about yourself in any manner, but I do want to ask you this. What makes a good psychotherapist, or what makes you a good psychotherapist?
I'm still working. I'm still developing. So there's a lot left to learn for me. But in terms of, it's very qualitative in a lot of ways because it'll depend on clients. And so I'm being able to kind of shift and meet the various client needs in a way that's specific, individualized, I think is really important. And so far, what I've learned from my supervisor and from others is just to really listen and figure out where the gaps are, where you can act as a bridge, where you can sort of foster development for folks and allow them to be empowered by the experience. So create a space for them to share that they can build trust with you, and then from there help them with patterns, help them with important nodes in their lives that they need to sort of process and work through.
What do you mean by patterns?
Well, we all kind of have patterns in our lives that we may or may not be fully aware of. And so in pulling out narratives, I do a lot of narrative therapy constructs, sort of an approach where we basically co-create a narrative with the client, and from that start to distill and pull out themes and patterns from people's lives to then dig deeper and sort of work on those things moving forward. Yeah.
When you're working with, and the last question here, when you're working with a client and you're really delving deep into the interior and figuring out these nodes and patterns and all that, sometimes when you walk away after that session, does it spark something in you about your own patterns, about your own behaviors?
Absolutely. Okay. I think that's part of the joy of this profession, is that you're there for the client first and foremost, but you're part of the experience. You're sitting next to them as they go through things, as they remember things, as they notice things. It's like I get to be sort of an intimate passenger in people's lives. And I mean, that's the honor. People always talk about the honor of this profession. And that really, I didn't fully understand the feeling. And after my first couple of sessions, I'm like, okay, this is a new feeling. I've never had this before, in terms of experiencing the honor and the trust that people sort of display in this dynamic. And it's incredible. It's quite incredible.
Do you ever use music as a vehicle, as a means of reaching and connecting to your clients?
I will be. It's one of those things where I'm building relationships at this point. And so some have mentioned the love of music. And I have a supervisor that I'll be contacting soon who's actually a music therapist. And so I've asked her to sort of instruct me on how to integrate music effectively so that it's an effective tool within the therapeutic environment. And so not yet, but hopefully in the next month or two, I'll be integrating a bit of music into the therapeutic experience with people that appreciate and sort of resonate with that approach. Yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah. Speaking of music.
Yeah.
I believe you've got some goodies to share with us. And I'm just going to sit back and listen to you talk about some vinyl picks.
You got it. No problem. I can handle this. All right. So I'll start with a couple of new releases. So I like to start with the stuff that's come out recently that I really, really love. And so the first one is this record, which, so this is the Midwife Viva Melancholia record, Orb Weaving. So yeah, it's, I've been following, well, Midwife is well known. Well, in the slowcore kind of circles, Midwife is well known. And hey, Chris. And so I love Midwife, but I love Viva Melancholia even more. Amazing artist from Kentucky. I think now living up in like the Pittsburgh area. I saw that Angel had moved. So her name's Angel Diaz. Incredible artist. There's a Viva Melancholia album that's only digital that came out, I think, about 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago, which was one of my favorite albums of that year. Never got like a vinyl pressing, but incredible stuff. So I highly recommend people check out the back catalog for Viva Melancholia for Angel Diaz. This record is just haunting, like absolutely bloody haunting. And so you just kind of get that tingling sensation of emotional catharsis and sadness with little glimmers of hope here and there. And it's just, yeah, it's breathtaking. The first time I listened to it, you just feel emotional listening to it. And it seemed apt. I got this variant, which they refer to as like the bone. So it's almost like, because it's so internal and introspective, this album, to have this called like a bone and brown variant, very appropriate for this type of record. And so people that like sort of drifting away, this is a very good drifting away record. Yeah.
I read that she lives in New Mexico, Madeline Johnston.
Yeah, that's Midwife. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So they recorded this in New Mexico because Viva Melancholia. So Angel went there to record some stuff and help Midwife on her last album. I think did some bass parts. And then while she was there, they hung out and they started writing and recording together and going out and catching like amphibious creatures at night together. And that's where I think they saw the spiders, the orb-weaving spiders. And so they sort of pulled a theme together from their late night encounters of grabbing snakes and things like that and bonding over that experience.
So the track that really caught my attention was this one. This is Miss America.
First track.
Yeah. And I love how, you're right. I mean, the slowcore haziness feel just kind of lulls you in.
Yeah.
And boy, does it hit you.
It's, and that rough vocal style that she does.
I hear a little bit of what was Lynch's go-to artist?
Julie Cruz.
Yeah, a little bit of that.
Yeah, well, because it's got like that haunting, hovering feel to it, right? And so, I mean, Madeline Johnston, like the Midwife stuff generally has that feel. So what I liked about this combination is Angel Diaz brought like a layering effect to Midwife. So it took sort of the rawness of the slowcore that Madeline was doing before and added more texture to it. So I find that it kind of reverberates more than the usual Midwife stuff. So it's sort of the shoegaze touch that Viva Melancholia added to it, which I really appreciate. Beautiful, beautiful record.
So I picked my favorite track. Do you have a favorite one here?
Probably NMP, the No More Pain track. That one just kicks me in the crotch. It's great. It's just really, it wins you.
And when did this out? When was this released?
I think like a month or two ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good stuff. I love that vinyl variant. Well, you just don't see that very often. And what do they call it?
It was called like Bone and Brown. And so, because I think they had a blue variant, and I'm like, this doesn't capture the essence. I'd heard the MP3s already, and I'm like, I want something that is tortured. And having it be Bone and Brown, I'm like, that's tortured. That's what I want. That captures more of the essence for me in terms of the album. Great
lead-off batter here. All right, what's our next one?
So my next is also a 2023 release. So from the Montreal band Body Wash. And so
you've been loving this.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, I held the shape while I could. It sounds poetic to start off with. So that's the name of the album. I held the shape while I could. Montreal duo, Rosie and Chris, they Chris is actually from the UK originally, but he went to McGill, which is a big Montreal university, back in like 2013, 2014, I think it was. And they met during that time, and they eventually kind of bonded over their love of Always, which I thought was hilarious. It's like the Canadian iconic band. Because I think Rosie's a bit more like Canadiana folk, and Chris is more shoegaze and dream pop. So they kind of like pulled those things together to make beautiful, beautiful music. This record, yeah, it's one of my top records of the year. I can't get enough of it. I've listened to it constantly for the past like 2 months. And I think I've played 3 tracks from it on my show because I just love all of the tracks they've been releasing from it.
So what is it? Why does it speak to you?
So they had an album called Comforter from I think 2018, 2019. And it was a beautiful, they called it cream pop, which I thought was hilarious because it was very sort of like texturally milky dream pop, beautiful, joyful in a way. This is more dynamic. And so they kind of like push that initial thing in directions that are a little bit more abstract, a bit more sort of like ambient beats as well, and a bit more post-rocky. So there's a bit more edge as they push things up, but there's still body wash. So the songwriting to me is incredible. Massive Central, which actually the 3rd track on it is about how Chris, there was like a typo or a mistake in some of his government documentation. He lost the ability to work in Canada. And the frustration that went along with the bureaucracy of him trying to figure out the paperwork to then be able to resume working in Canada. I think he thought he had to leave basically to go back to the UK because of all the crap was going down. And during the pandemic, imagine sort of having to uproot your life and go back home or whatever. It was just, so a lot of frustration came out in that. So that song really first resonated with me, but Kind of Light as well. Just these gentle builds that they've found a way to hone them. The beautiful, gentle builds that really flourish and show like a dynamic range. And so it's a dream pop shoegaze record, but it does have a really good ebb and flow in terms of building up towards crescendos. It's still gentle, still not overpowering in any way that's going to be harsh, but it's so like the range of it is bang on for my particular palette. It's wonderful.
My favorite track is Perfect Blue.
Yeah, well, that's one of the stronger guitar tracks.
I love how it just comes roaring in here.
Do you know what it's named after?
No.
It's an anime movie that they both love. And actually, I love it too. So that's why I was like, ooh, I wonder if this is named after the movie. And sure enough, it's named after the anime movie.
This is why I love talking to you. I mean, there's just the guys are great little nuggets like that. Your favorite track?
It's great.
I will.
See, for me, it keeps changing. So, because I find that certain days I'm more into Massive Central. Kind of Light is that was their first single. And it hasn't grown old on me at all. It's such a beautiful, beautiful build on that track. So I feel like the end of the day, Kind of Light is still going to be my favorite song from the album.
Yeah. Now, did Simon Scott have anything to do with the mastering on this?
No, I don't think so.
He's everywhere.
It's a good question to ask. It's like you look for either Mark Gardner or Simon Scott.
Yeah, exactly.
You're sort of like, one of these 2 guys must be involved somewhere in this, right? But you know what? You never know. Maybe I missed that somewhere.
Yeah, no, this is, so you think this is going to be a top 5er for you of the year?
Oh, absolutely. Without a doubt. This is already like top. This and the Flying Colors record are my 2 favorites so far this year. And there's something in Canada called the Polaris Prize. Have I talked about that before?
No.
So there's the Polaris. It's kind of like the Mercury Prize from the UK, which you probably know, right? So we have the Polaris in Canada, which honors Canadian artists and musicians, right? And so like Zoom Gaidawin was a finalist, shortlisted last year, the year before. And I really want Body Wash to get on the Polaris list this year and be shortlisted because this album deserves the attention. It really, really does. Yeah.
Is the album, I can't remember if you showed it, is it just a standard black or what is that?
Oh, actually, I've got the clear. I've got the clear variant, and I always feel funny about taking, because I take a lot of photos of my vinyl on my turntable. Now, whenever I get a clear record, I put it on my turntable, and I have a really funky slip mat that creates designs. So people always see my photos and go, "Whoa, that vinyl is crazy!" And it's like, no, that's my slip mat. So every time I've got clear vinyl, I feel like I'm basically faking people out, lying to them with the slip mat that I've got. But it's a beautiful, clear vinyl that I appreciate them sending to me.
Gorgeous. Gorgeous. Man, yeah, that's a good one. Body wash. And it looks like some people are chiming in
Oh,
here. We have
Vishala, hey, how's it
Alan
going?
is here, Relux. Chris is here. Hello, Chris. Colin's here. We announced that. Thank you for tuning in.
Vishala wants us to spar. Vishala wants us to like verbally spar. I think she's awaiting our potential sparring.
Oh, really? Well, that's coming up soon.
That'll come up later. Right. Yeah, we'll get to it.
Let's go to vinyl pick number 3 here.
So I wanted to keep the Canadian theme going. Also, I went record shopping. I haven't done a physical go out into the wild record shopping day in like a year. So I went a week or two ago. I just order everything online or get stuff online. And I came across this record that I've always wanted on vinyl that I had on CD. That to me it's one of my favorite Canadian albums. Which people are like, people either A, don't realize these guys are Canadian, or B, go, what is that? But this record, Junior Boys, Last Exit. So they're a duo. They say from Hamilton. I thought they were kind of from Waterdown, which is between Burlington and Hamilton, but whatever. Amazing electropop. I don't know how else to describe it. It's just really good. It's got some nice skittery beats, but it's all like lush and yet minimal and hushed vocals. So you're not like overwhelmed with vocals, yet the vocals are somehow a little bit soulful. So like hushed, soulful vocals, amazing programming in terms of the beats and the textures. And probably my first draw to this is there's a song called Birthday. It's so hard to find good birthday songs. And it's an amazing birthday song. Even though it's kind of sad and depressing about birthdays, it's a really good birthday song. So yeah, I wanted to represent that. And also, I saw these guys touring when I was living in London, which was weird. So seeing a Canadian act touring while I was there, and the London crowd loved them, like absolutely loved them. I feel like they were bigger in the UK than they were over here.
Okay.
And so they ate them up. And yeah, we knew somebody that was like the girlfriend of one of the guys, Matt, the programmer. Basically was in a relationship with somebody that my wife and I went to high school with. So it's a very, so we saw her in London. She was like, hey, and we're like, hey, what are you doing here? And she was selling t-shirts for the band. So that was fun.
So what year was that when you saw them?
We saw them in 2006 or 2007. I feel like it was 2006. So it was during the So This Is Goodbye tour. So the album after this is when I saw them in concert. But this is still my favorite record by them.
So when I listened to this album, I knew I was going to be locked in for like a good, I don't know, hour and a half of just sitting here in my office doing some work. And this was perfect music to keep me humming along, grooving along. And there are elements to them like, damn. And I just I think I even messaged you on a couple of songs that really grabbed my attention.
You did.
But I also, I have to think Damon Albarn from Blur, and this had to have influenced Gorillaz. I hear some Gorillaz elements to it.
It's possible. You never know what they're listening to, so it's possible. Yeah.
No, it's this one, Last Exit. Yeah. So how prolific is this band? Or do they have a lot of albums?
I think they've got 5 albums, I think now, if I'm not mistaken. But they've
this is your favorite?
Yeah, the first one is my favorite. So This Is Goodbye, the album after this, is also really good, and I like it. They went in a dancier direction for So This Is Goodbye. And then after that, they kind of went in a bit more of a, I don't want to say soulful direction, but it became a little bit more poppy, more soulful. And it didn't quite hit me in the same way afterwards. Yeah. It's still good. I'll still like listen to it, but it doesn't grab me the way the first 2 albums did. This one in particular, I go back to it again and again, and it's from like 2004. And so it almost falls into that category of the No Twist and like the Postal Service and stuff like that, where it's really good skittery beat stuff with really nice smooth vocals over top. And it's like it's intelligent music, but it's also pop music, so you kind of can lean into either side depending on your mood, which is always a nice thing to have. Yeah.
No, that's a great way to describe it. And I've always I think I mention this every show. I always appreciate the way you articulate and describe how the music evokes some kind of feeling for you. You really crystallize it in a way that I go, yeah, that makes complete sense. Okay, so we go from Junior Boys to.
So we're gonna go over to Brooklyn, New York, and so this is the band Team Body. The album's called Dreamo, and this was one of those records that, how do I put this? It was one of my favorite records of 2019, I think is when it came out. But it felt like it wasn't getting enough attention. Like I kept playing stuff on the shows that I was doing and telling friends listen to it because it's very accessible. The name Dreamo is actually from a friend of theirs who, after one of their sets, they were walking out talking to their friends. It's like kind of like a mix of dream pop and emo. So you kind of like Dreamo. And so they were like, let's call the album that. And it is. It's got like emo elements to it. It's not like, it doesn't have the whiny vocals, but it's got like sort of the vocal style that pushes sort of like more of a pop boundary than shoegaze or dream pop would. But yet it's got guitar work that blends both sort of indie emo stuff along with dream pop, I would say. So it's gentle and yet a little bit jagged in parts as well, but all done really skillfully. And like Act Your Age, the song Act Your Age off of this, I will still just end up whistling to myself while I'm out walking my dog. And I'm like, that's that song again. It's such an earworm of a song. It's 6.5 minutes long, I think. It's a long song, but it's such a good riff and such a good catch in terms of a chorus that you just get sucked in. Bridge and chorus are both incredible in that song. So I think more people need to listen to it for sure.
I absolutely love this album. And I was like, here, I mean, with Fell Off is the first track.
Mm-hmm.
And right there, I already knew. I'm like, oh, I'm going to love this. It's like Lost in Translation movie. In the first 3 minutes, I'm going to love this. No, this was I love that you picked this one.
Yeah, I wanted to put a guitar album in there. So I'm like, I need some like kind of guitar dream pop representation because I noticed that I was a bit light on that. And I'm like, why have I not talked about this album yet? In the 5 episodes that we've had, how have I not brought up the Teen Body record?
So you said they're from New York?
I think they're, Brooklyn.
Okay.
Yeah. So there was rumors that they might be doing a new album, but I haven't seen anything go past the rumor stage because I would love to hear another record from them because it's been, like 4 years or so, right? So 4 or 5 years. And they are due, in my mind, for another record, but I'm not sure what their status is. This is their second album. They have an album before this that I've listened to, and I like it, but this Dreamo record is next level, amazing stuff. Yeah. And they mentioned Yola Tango as sort of like an influence, so I thought of you as well. So I'm like, I know W likes the Yola Tango, so let's bring in somebody who's inspired by that.
And I just saw that I think they threw out the first pitch at a Mets game a couple days ago or something.
That was against the Jays, I think, probably too, because we were in town.
Nice. So this is Team Body, and such a great pick. Solid. What do you say to people if they ever ask you this question? Dream pop, shoegaze, it all just kind of sounds the same. Like, what do you say to that?
Like, you mean between different bands and stuff like that, or?
Yeah, and they're just kind of this snotty kind of tone. Like, don't you get tired of this music? It all kind of sounds the same.
But it's so funny because I mean, I don't. If people think that, I'm okay with it. You're allowed to have your opinion. If it all sounds the same to you and it's kind of muddied and it's not your thing, cool. There's other stuff that could be your thing instead. So it doesn't bother me because I think about the different genres I've gone through as well. So like early on, listening to jazz all sounded the same. But then when I got into jazz, then it started sounding different. Same with metal. Got into metal for a while. And you're like, metal sounds the same. It's all the same kind of thing. And then you get into, you're like, actually, there's more variation. So to me, people will generally look meta, like at a genre. If they don't know about it, if they're not really immersed in it, it will sound similar-ish to them compared to somebody who's really into it, who kind of like picks out the little differences here and there. I think that's part of art. It's just sort of like the diving in for appreciation of art requires more focus, more attention, more like adoration and love for it. Then you can start to separate things and hear, sort of delineations of subgenres or influences, etc. And that's fine. Because people have often told me, they're like, yeah, well, because I've got lots of friends that are not into shoegaze and dream pop, which is totally fine. It's okay.
Yeah.
So I'll put stuff on when they're over, and they'll be like, oh, like what album is this? I'm like, it's a mix. So it's not one album, because it'll just sound like a similar artist. And I'm like, no, dude, it's a mix of different artists, and that's cool. That's okay.
Yeah. I actually don't know the answer to this question. Were you ever into like synth pop, new
Uh,
wave?
a little bit, but
Okay.
more so like later on. So I
Okay.
wasn't like I had a bit of a Depeche Mode phase, I would
Uh,
say, but only towards like Music for the Masses and Violator, so towards like the later '80s. But
uh-huh.
even that wasn't wholeheartedly, to be honest. It was like I liked them. I think I had a couple of their CDs, but
Yeah.
I never went through like a hardcore synth pop phase. Yet I find that I'm drawn to dreamy synth pop, like stuff that has like layers to it and textures. That's sort of synth poppy that they're doing now. Because actually, like I'm going to see Searskew tomorrow night, along with Frankie Rose, and then on Thursday I'm going to see Nabiha Iqbal, who's like the Ninja Tune artist who does like dream and techno stuff.
Okay.
So there's
Nice.
lots of good new stuff that I like blending genres. I like it when people
Yeah.
bring in sort of a new take on things that still fits
Yeah.
the mold, but adds sort of like a feather to it, or variant to it that kind of makes it a little bit unique.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't sure. Like I was thinking like did he ever listen to like Howard Jones, Thompson Twins,
For
early
karaoke, absolutely. '80s, I was just
Tears for
singing along in the
Fears?
car. It's the car radio songs, right? Like,
Yeah.
I love that stuff.
Um okay. The cheese we call it, the 80s cheese.
I call it the '80s karaoke.
Right.
I
Fair
think because
enough.
I tend to do a little bit too much George Michael when we go out to do karaoke. So
Is this on YouTube? Has anyone
no,
captured this
it's in
on
a
YouTube?
private karaoke room with my friends.
Nothing's
What do you mean?
private. You know that.
I'm pretty sure we're all too old to film ourselves doing karaoke.
Good. All right. And what's next here?
So this is the last one of the vinyl picks, and
Okay.
so this is Amp. This is Stenorette. Amp, the UK project. So there's Richard. He calls himself Richard Amp. I think he's a different last name. I can't remember what it is, like Richard Walters or something like that. Anyways, so this is their. I always joke. This is their pop record. And if you listen to it, you're like, wait a second, that's their pop record? Because they generally do a lot of ambient, droney noise stuff. And this was their kind of like foray into shorter songs with sort of semi pop structures that still kind of meandered. And it's on Cranky Records. So if anybody knows Cranky Records, they know what I mean when I say this is a pop record on Cranky Records. So grain of salt, grain of salt. But the reason I chose this is this is sort of one of those bands that I feel like musicians who are in sort of the drone scene, the ambient scene, reflect back a lot on the Amp work, because it's
Yes.
very, very influential. And also, when I looked at the artists, because it's Richard, but then he brings in other artists, and so there's people from Flying Saucer Attack, Third Eye Foundation, Loop. So like, there's different artists that kind of contribute their style to Richard when he does his albums. And he's got a French vocalist who does some really nice vocals. I think it's like Cavian, something like this. And so, great record. The song "Sunflower" off of this um, was like a pop gem. It's so good, and it's weird that it's Amp.
This is Sunflower. And I think this is another one I messaged you. Zoe was a great song too. Or
Yeah, it's always great too.
And what does the vinyl look like?
It's a standard black because it's an old school cranky record. So this is this is one of the. I don't think they pressed many of these. They did this thing where I think they found a bunch of their their old records and posted the amp stuff to Bandcamp. Probably like I want to say 4 years ago ish. So I saw it and it was I think all of the early amp albums that they pressed to vinyl. So I went and just bought them all in one go because I loved the early amp droney ambient stuff as well. But then I saw Stenarette too, and I'm like, I'll get their pop record while I'm at it, and it's so good. I still put it on and quite enjoy it. And it's sort of it has that late '90s sound where I find that genres were trying to figure out who they were, and so because shoegaze was kind of gone, and they were like, well, where do we go? Do we go drone? Do we go ambient? Do we go post rock? And so there's a lot of this weird sort of like throw it all into a pot and see what you come up with. And I think AMP kind of personified that for me, where they tried a bit of everything within about a 3 or 4 year span. So from very ambient to pop structure, like back to back with a record that was basically like rain sounds, Perceptions. So it's like Perceptions and this were like a year apart and completely different albums.
Maybe this could be your first album that you use for music with your clients.
Maybe I'd probably go more for the ambient stuff. It depends what you're using music for. I got to talk to the supervisor about that and see what the idea is for therapy.
Right.
Oh, Vishala mentioned something. Revelation for Vishala, yeah. Discovered them pretty recently. Siren, yeah, extremely wonderful. So yeah, Vishala, Siren I think is one of their first albums. The next one. Vishala. Haven't gotten to Stenarette yet. Get to Stenarette, Vishala. You'll really like Stenarette. Yeah, for sure.
Oh no! See, now I can see her name. Got it. You never know with Facebook. So I have to before we move into the memorabilia part of this conversation. How often do you sell vinyl or your CDs back?
Well, nobody buys CDs anymore, really, up here. So that's for now. Maybe there'll be like a resurgence in the next 10 years, and then I'll try to take advantage and sell some. As far as vinyl, I try to sort of sell off stuff once a year. Yeah. So I'll go through. I've got a stack sitting behind the couch right now that I need to go down to the record shop and try to sell to make space. I'll be honest. You run out of space and you're like, I got nowhere else to put this. I have a Canadian butter box made of wood coming tomorrow to house a bit more vinyl. Because those look really cool. There's like antique Canadian butter boxes. If you ever Googled that, they're beautiful wooden boxes that they used to deliver butter in, like in the 1950s, 1960s, I think. And so you can buy them, and they're perfect for records. The records fit them really nice, and it's a nice antique looking thing. Yeah.
How do you decide? Yeah, I'm going to keep. No, I'm going to sell.
It's really it's very. Marie Kondo. Right? I basically pull them all out and kind of go, huh? Spark, yes, no, okay. And I put like 95% of them back on the shelf and go, yes, I want to keep this because it holds some memory. It has some song on it. It's whatever. It's got a quality to it that I need to keep around. But every now and then I come across where I'm like, maybe it's time to let this one go. Or as I'm getting new records, sometimes I might take a chance on something and that could go one way or the other. Also, when I was part of record clubs, which I'm not anymore, but I was part of record clubs, you get the occasional record where you're like, nah, this isn't quite the thing that I want. So sort of sell those ones off. Yeah. Yes.
Memorabilia.
Background. Drive Majesty. Sorry, I'm reading the comments. I'm like, there it is, the demonstration. We talked about that one last time, I think, right? The demonstration. So awesome record.
So. Yeah. Nice. This could be 2 hours long in memorabilia. What do you have for us?
I was going to say, do you want me to start with t-shirts or tickets?
Let's go tickets. I want to see some tickets.
Let's see if I can show these. We didn't practice this at all. So this is my first ticket. Oh, I can. All right. You can see that. So PJ Harvey. So this was PJ Harvey with Tricky opening. So just to give you an idea of the time, so 1995, Tricky had just released his first album, and this was the "To Bring You My Love" tour for PJ Harvey.
Does that
And
say Arizona? I can't see that. Arizona?
Arizona, no, it was
Well, I
Toronto.
see. What is it? Phoenix?
Yeah, the Phoenix is the name of the concert venue.
Got it. Got it.
So
Got
it's
it. Got
called
it.
the Phoenix. So yeah, not. I like that you went to Arizona though, in terms of like location. Toronto, but the club is called the Phoenix. So this also, I love it. $18.50 to go see PJ Harvey. Anyway, the reason I picked this one is this was kind of towards the beginning of me going to concerts and sort of getting out there. Tricky was really memorable because the bass was so incredibly low
Yeah.
that my nostrils, like I kept rubbing my nose because I was like, what is going on? And then I realized I'm like, it's the bass. It's actually tickling like my nasal passages. And I'd never experienced that before. And it was very weird. And apparently I carried that in my memory bank until now, many, many years later. But she was also just incredible. The stage presence, the performer, the exuberance. And the Phoenix is kind of like a medium-sized venue. So you could be up there and see her. It's the same spot that I saw the Verve when they were doing a Northern Soul, the same venue for that. So.
Oh, our friends, the Verve.
Yes, our friends, the Verve.
I've never seen PJ Harvey.
Really?
I know. I
She's
have to.
she's a good
Pretty
one.
amazing, right?
Yeah, it was just you walked out and you're like you knew you saw something special, and I was still young and naive, and I still knew I saw something special after that show.
$18.50 for both. Man, that's nice.
$18.50. All right, you ready? So the first two tickets I chose was because of the opener / headliner being kind of like a fun combination. So this is the other one I chose. I think from the same year. Yeah, same year. So this is Bjork at the Warehouse in Toronto. This was during her post tour. To give you an idea of the timing. And Aphex Twin opened.
Oh, man.
But the reason that that's memorable in this case is we never actually saw Aphex Twin. He hid under a table on the stage. We don't know if he like did too much of something or was just having a stage fright episode. But we just saw like hands. So you'd see hands come up and do stuff and then kind of retreat and then do it again. And you're like, it could be anybody. It doesn't have. It could be any person doing that. But they're like, no, it's Aphex Twin, and it was an amazing set. It was the first time I went to kind of like a dancier kind of show because the post record was very dancey. So it was kind of like a mini rave party at the Warehouse for that one. A lot of dancing around, and I was not used to dancing at shows because I was still kind of an indie kid at heart at that point. So I did my best.
That's another artist I haven't yet to see. Well, actually, I saw the Sugar Cubes, but I haven't seen Bjork.
Wow.
Yeah.
When did you see the Sugar Cubes? That was a long time ago then.
92.
Yeah.
And I think I mentioned this story that halfway during their set, this was a show in San Francisco. All of a sudden, boom, all the electricity went out. Power down, pitch black. This is when people had their lighters, no cell phones.
Yeah.
And we didn't know what the hell was going on. 35 minutes later, they queued everything right up, right where they left off. I mean, it's perfect.
Like were they mid-song?
Yeah.
Were they mid-songs? That would be awesome. Oh, no way. Okay, that's...
Yeah.
Yeah, that you sort of like go, yes. That was...
And that happened with Luna. I saw Luna, too. And they were doing Fuzzy Wuzzy. You know the song from Pup Tent?
Oh, yeah. Yep, the best song on Pup Tent.
All of a sudden, the power went out. And everyone's, barking and going, what the hell's going on? And then Dean and Britta and Sean and all just got right back on after some time. And it's like it never even happened. They must prepare for it.
That's a professional.
But I heard these Bjork shows are pretty damn special.
That post show was really good. It's weird because I'm not like a massive Bjork fan. I like Bjork, but I keep kind of going to see Bjork. I think I've seen Bjork 4 times now, And they're always really good shows because she chooses cool venues as well, and she puts on such a performance, or has like an orchestra with her with throat singers, or there's like she did a show on Toronto Island years back where there was fireworks happening. Like, so she's performing on a stage by the water and there's just fireworks going off above her during the set. So it was just kind of like everything feels special and magical when she performs. She finds a way to make it happen. Yeah.
Well, and she knows she can get whomever she wants to support this,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So,
yep.
Great.
She's an artiste, for
Yep.
sure. All right, I got one more ticket.
Great.
So I was going with my theme of like a 2-band setup. So this was 1996, still a long time ago. And this is Girls Against Boys.
Oh, wow.
So
Holy
remember
shit.
them. But the
do.
reason I chose this ticket was because they played with Therapy. Do you remember Therapy?
I do.
It was the weirdest co-headlining. What I guess is not they were the headliners, but to bring Therapy from like Ireland,
Yeah,
to tour with these guys, like Therapy being kind of like a post-metal, they would be better suited to be on tour with like Quicksand or Helmet.
Helmet.
But they were opening for Girls Against Boys, and I really liked Therapy. I had Therapy T-shirts and stuff back in my kind of post-metal phase. But this show, I was probably the happiest person there because I loved both bands. And so I got to watch Therapy kind of do their thing live, and I'd never seen them before, and then see Girls Against Boys kind of in their heyday. To me, that was before, I think that was right before they got signed, or was it right after? I think they were still an independent band at this point.
Okay.
In 96. And so they were just great. Really, the double bass thing and the wall of sound they created with that was just very memorable and really impressive. Really impressive.
That venue, is that venue still there?
Lee's Palace? Actually, yeah. So the only
Okay.
one that's gone of these is the Warehouse. So the Phoenix is still there, and Lee's Palace is still kicking. And Lee's Palace is where Looney used to play all the time. And so it's sort of a small to medium venue, and Luna just loves playing there when they come to Toronto. It's sort of like a sunken in under the stage. You can look up and see them. And so, yeah, I always think of Luna when I think of Lee's Palace because I think I saw them there like 7 or 8 times. They were always in Toronto.
Yeah, they probably have a really strong following there, right?
It would appear so. Not that I minded.
Yeah. You got some T-shirts.
I do. And so since we're talking about, you'll see the connection in a second, but so we talked about Luna.
Dream Pop Stereo. Oh, nice.
So this was my first time seeing a Asobi Sexu, and it was actually in the UK. So this was in London. I can't remember the name of the venue at all. It was some basement venue in London, and Dean and Britta opened for Asobi Sexu. So story time. I'm putzing around before the show, and I'm at a record shop on like the high street, and I noticed I see Dean and Britta looking at records at an HMV. That's what it was. And so I walk over and I'm like, "Hey, you're playing tonight?" And they were like, yeah, we're playing tonight. I'm like, "Why are you record shopping here? You shouldn't be, like, you should go to Barrack Street."
You're telling them where to go.
So I was with my friend Layla. We went up front, chatted with them for like a minute or two, and then kind of like directed them towards Barrack Street. And we're like, "Okay, this is where you want to go record shopping." And they I mean, it's Dean. He's cool about everything. So he was just like, "Thanks, appreciate it." And Britt was like, "Oh, appreciate it, thanks." And they were lovely to see. That was their like first, I think, release as Dean and Britta was for that particular tour. And then Asobi Sexu, this was at that time, that second album time when Thursday was kicking it. And so when they played Thursday, I
lost your mind.
I melted. I completely melted in this tiny little like London underground venue. I melted. God. I looked at my friend and I'm like, what is happening? I don't understand. And so I had to get a t-shirt. And I'm like, it's got Japanese on it, even better.
So that shirt looks to be in very good condition.
Really? Well, I guess the camera does it justice in some way. It's I pulled it out from a box in storage. So it's Maybe I'm just showing you the good part. Don't look at the armpits.
God.
It's always the first spot to go, right?
See, I had the good fortune of seeing them right several months before they broke up. They played on, I think it was 4th of July in San Francisco, a place called the Bottom of the Hill. Tiny, tiny place.
That's a great venue. I've heard of it from a lot of people. Some good stuff comes through there.
And I was gobsmacked. And I knew, I was like, oh, I know I'm going to like this show. I forgot his name, the drummer. I was so impressed with his skills.
Yeah.
Like, it floored.
Yeah, I remember.
I mean, he was hitting his mark. It was just amazing.
Well, they just create such a good wall. Like, their wall of sound was one of the best walls of sound I experienced in that kind of, especially around 2006, 2007, from when I got that t-shirt and saw them. There wasn't a whole lot of shoegazy stuff happening. And it was weird because, like, London had their club AC30. And so they had like little pockets of shoegaze, but it tended to be sort of like out of town acts or just smaller London acts that didn't get a lot of cred. So people that were at the Asobi Sexu show, you could chat with them. Like, people that were there were really into shoegaze and dream pop. And so I had a lot of fun conversations with, you know, half drunk people that night. It was a really, really great night. Really great night. I enjoyed it.
Do you know what they're doing now? If anyone, if you're tuning in, if anyone knows what any of those band members are doing, let us know. Yeah, Fluorescence, Hush, Citrus. Good Lord. 3. I mean, we could have a whole listening party with that stuff. Just incredible. Just great, great music. And that's see, and then when I saw this translate on that stage.
Yeah, I would say that because I like their albums. Like, I really like their albums, especially their second album. But live, better. Like, the stuff they did live was just like start to tear up a little bit. Like, it's just it's so powerful and so thick. It's great, and she's awesome. She's got lots of character. I liked it when she hopped on the drums too at the end of sets. She'd often play like the last song on the drums. I think I saw them 3 times. That was the first time I saw them, and she'd often hop on the drums at the end and just start, like, you know, pounding away, which was adorable. It's great.
I don't think she did that at the show. Damn it!
Oh, she did that in Toronto a couple times.
Okay.
I saw in Toronto.
Maybe she did. I was just so like, sometimes. Do you ever do this at concerts? You go to a show, particularly shoegaze, dream pop. You close your eyes, and you like open them 2 minutes later, and like, where the hell am I? Or in this song, or this. So maybe I'm still lost in that moment. Man, that is a great shirt.
Love it. Love that shirt.
Yeah.
All right, you ready for another one?
Yeah. Loving this.
So
okay, got it. For some reason,
do you know Jason?
No. And your image is coming in and out, the feed on it. Okay, so go ahead. Tell us about Jason.
So Jason Molina. You don't know Jason? You need to know Jason. Like, as in,
I should
research, and you should know.
It's not really, Pitchfork Top 50.
No, but especially if you like Always, you should.
Oh yeah.
I suddenly got your attention. Very accessible, poppy dream pop. And so, like, a sugary coated, almost radio friendly dream pop. And she does sound engineering for other people as well. And so she's been around. She did like a collaboration with Pale Hound last year, and she's also done some other stuff. But she has her own albums that are incredible that you need to get on immediately. Maybe I'll show one of her records next time, so you can
please.
Yeah, she's really good. And so the reason I picked that shirt, 2 reasons, I guess. First is the first time I saw her when I got this shirt. It was like first album, I think, and she was still slightly unknown. She came off the stage, and I was with a friend of mine named Michelle. And Melina came over, and she just sort of like bounced over. So like the lead singer, Jason, like the songwriter, Melina. She jumps over, bounces over, and she's like, "Hey, how's it going?" She's really friendly, like right out of the gate. And she's just like looking at us, and we're like, that was amazing. Loved your set. She's like, I love food. Where can I go eat in Toronto? And so my friend Michelle, who's like a massive foodie, just basically gave her a list of places to go eat. It was so endearing and so genuine and no pretension and just awesome. I was like, this lover, really, really cool experience with an artist just bouncing off the stage and asking for food recommendations.
Is she from the Bay Area?
You know, I don't remember.
I feel like you did a review of it. Yeah. Okay.
It's possible. Yeah, it's possible. I can't remember offhand. I'm pretty sure she's from California, though.
Okay.
Yeah. So the second reason I love her, there's so Molly from Always goes to indie shows in Toronto, so I'll see her every now and then. And she went to go see Jason. I think it was in 2019, December. I remember it precisely. I'd had one of the worst professional working days of my life. The school had formed a union, and we were doing negotiations, and we'd ratified a contract that particular day. But I was so psychologically and emotionally drained. And thank goodness I had a J-Som concert to go to that night with my friend Derek. And so we went, and I basically just like gushed to like I let it all out to Derek at a meal beforehand. And then I went and we saw Molly, and we're like, oh my God, it's Molly again. And then we stood and watched J-Som. And the soothing reverberations of that particular show were just the tonic that I needed in that situation. And so I left there feeling so much better, so refreshed, and not like a piece of shit, because I felt awful after those negotiations.
Can you imagine if that you had a different experience at that show? Oh God.
Instead, I'm thanking her and showing her T-shirt and going, this was great. It was great.
Oh, I'm excited to check that out. I feel like you have shared an album or two, maybe. I'm not sure. Can't remember. I'll have to go back to previous episodes. Sure. Any other shirt?
One last shirt, and this one's for you, buddy.
Oh, yeah. Holy smokes. Wow.
So I told you I saw them during this tour. So
yeah.
So this is the T-shirt evidence.
Thank you.
So
let's talk about that. That show must have been pretty amazing.
It was. Well, I think did we mention it last time? I kept waiting for his voice to cut out, because he was just straining, like Hamilton was straining so hard, and I just kept looking at him going like, oh dude, like somebody get him some lemon tea or something, because it just sounds like he's gonna throw up a lung while he's on stage. So it was very powerful. When they busted into the Rat, it was game over for me. I could not, like, every little pore and hair on my body just erupted. It was really intense. It was great.
So they're coming to the Bay Area in October. I still got to get my ticket for that. The last time I saw them was for the Heaven Tour. And I think I mentioned to you that when before they entered on the stage, there was a gentleman sitting next to me with a group of 4 or 5 people.
Right.
And he started talking to me, and how do you know the Walkmen, blah, blah, blah. I said, oh, so who are you here with? And he said, well, this is my family. So he had his daughters, he had his wife. And I said, what, your children like the Walkman? He goes, now they do.
They have no choice.
They have no choice. And I said, oh, you live in San Francisco? He goes, no, we drove all the way down from Sacramento to see the Walkman. I'm like, man. And I think it was like it was like a early day Father's Day present, or maybe birthday present, something like that. And then after the show, they were lit. I mean, every song he was high-fiving me. I mean, it was just such a magical night. So I cannot wait to see this band again. They are extraordinary live. Yeah, you wince. You sit there and go, how does Hamilton do this for an hour and a half?
Oh,
I
grabbing
learned,
my throat. I'm like, oh,
yeah,
pain.
And I learned that when he has the horn section, when he gets these people he will message people and say, all right, Walkmen are coming to town. Do you know how to play horns? And if you do, here are our songs that we're going to do. Here's the sheet music, blah, blah, blah. Join us here.
Wow.
So Yeah, that, and I don't know if they're doing that for this tour, but that's what I heard on their previous on the Heaven album. But God, what a band! Thank you for that.
No
Thank
problem.
you. And now I'm all excited. And they're playing at this freaking phenomenal venue called the Fox Theater in Oakland, which I just saw Love and Rockets. So
Oh wow.
yeah, and the sound there is outstanding. All right. This is what everyone's, well, no. We gotta do that.
Go
But
ahead.
if you read our description, we are going to talk about an album that was rated, made the top 50 list, Pitchfork, shoegaze album of all time. And so this is the first time we've done this. So I messaged Simon. I said, let's shake things up a bit. Let's see. Let's do this. And you agreed. So here's what this is. I said, let's pick an album that was recognized by Pitchfork, top 50. And you listen to it on your own. I'll listen to it on my own. And I will form my own opinions. And you will too. And we will share it with our audience. So that's where we're at right now. And this goes back to my opener here. So can you tell the audience what I was reading or just the premise of this?
In terms of the political angle that you were discussing earlier on?
Yeah.
So, I mean, this particular artist came back. I think they went on hiatus and didn't do much music after this album, maybe a little bit. But then they came back to do a political song against the Prime Minister of Japan. And due to their allegiances against the Prime Minister of Japan, got dropped from the record label, was told that no more of their music would be released in Japan, that it wouldn't be touched with a 10-foot pole, basically, because of their political stance against the Prime Minister in Japan. So that was, I read that article and I was like, whoa. So that was something. Yeah. So
we're talking about, I'm going to try to pronounce this.
We discussed this. How do you pronounce it? Yeah, go for it.
Yes. Zinli Supreme. And this was recognized as, from Pitchfork, I think it was number 50 on their list.
Yeah, it was.
Now, I purposely did not read the description.
Yep, me neither.
Because I didn't want any kind of judgment beforehand. So if you are familiar with this album that we are going to talk about, this is Tomorrow Never Comes, came out in 2002. We're going to talk about this real quickly and our experience with it. So would you like to go first, or would you like me to go first, or however?
Go for it. You're on a roll. What did you think of the album?
Okay. So this was I listened to it twice. The first time I just kind of let it wash in my ears, and I was taken back immediately. And I use that word abrasive. It was sharp. It was pokey. It was jabby. And I wasn't expecting that. And I did, I'm being very honest, I did no research on this band. Because to be honest with you, I actually never heard of this band before.
Me neither.
So when I was listening to it, the second time I was immersed in this sound that I was trying to figure out where is the shoegaze elements here.
Yeah.
Because it sounded very experimental. It sounded harsh, and I couldn't find any melodies. I was waiting. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, okay, where is this going to come? Because this can't just be top in a 50 ranking to be considered that. And all of a sudden, I found in the second song, Goodbye for All. Mm-hmm. And yet, it doesn't just happen. You have to. So what I did was, I lost you. Can you see me?
I can see you.
Okay. I put on headphones to really swim in that sound. And overall, I will say, would I agree that it's a top 50? No. would I agree that it's fascinating? It's interesting. It's a listen that you really have to just sit down with, or
Mhm,
maybe,
mhm,
you can go off and do something else and maybe catch a spark of it. Um, there were some elements to it that I thought that were very unique,
mhm.
particularly on the song "All You Need Is Love" was not true.
Yep.
That's the 8-minute juggernaut there. And what I did was, just for everyone listening, I listened to each song and then I ranked them out of 5, and 5 being the highest, 1 being the poorest score.
Mm,
And so then I added them all up, divided by how many songs were on the album, and there are 12. Um, and my average was, drum roll please, roughly a 3.75.
mm,
3.75.
mm,
Um, I can be, I would say it's not an album I would put on immediately again.
mhm.
It takes a lot of concentration. I respect its work. And
Yep.
now, after reading kind of the messages behind these songs and where they're at as a band, um, maybe brings a little bit more muscle.
Mhm,
So, 3 favorite tracks, as I mentioned, All You Need Is Love was not true.
mhm.
I'm not sure how to pronounce this. This is track number 8. Amaryllis? Amaryllis? Not track number 8. I
Yeah.
loved. And then the last track, which is, or sorry, second last track, Fatal Sisters Open Umbrella. If you have 12 minutes to spare, that song's crazy, utterly nutty.
Yep.
Um, so solid B for me, if we're going to give it a grade. Solid B.
You're such a teacher.
Five stars.
I
But
give you
I
a
mean, like I said,
number value and a letter grade.
fascinating, and I think it's a great lens into people really creating art.
Yeah.
And maybe they were giving a shit. I don't know these people. But it's like them just creating art for the sake of art and not worried about, oh, how's this going to sound to people?
Yeah. I mean, I think that they do think about what it's going to sound like to people within a subgenre, right? So I
Yeah.
agree that this is not,
Subgenre.
yeah, this is not readily shoegaze or dream pop, obviously. It's very experimental, and it actually brought me more back to Cranky, which is, I thought it was a nice tie-in for the amp, um, because some amp stuff sounds like this. Like Siren, the one that Vishala mentioned, has elements that reminded me of this, where
Nice.
they're taking like abrasive noise and playing with it and shaping it and crafting it until it almost like drones itself out, and then they add another layer underneath. So there's really amazing musicianship in this that I think you can't deny in terms of appreciation. Is it a challenging record? Absolutely. But do you like drone? Do you like 1990s cranky record stuff? So I mean, there's like Flies in the Sun. There's early Amp. This type of even Flying Saucer Attack and Third Eye
Flying Saucer
Foundation that
Attack.
I've talked about. Like it's
Yep.
got those elements where you're kind of like, I know this is good. I know this is art. I need to sit with it a little bit and have it kind of do something to my brain because it feels like it's kind of rewriting code in your
Very
brain.
cerebral.
Very,
Very
very
cerebral.
cerebral. And so I actually listened to it with headphones the first time, and
Okay.
so I was doing that and sort of looking at some stuff, not doing anything too heavy, so that I could kind of occasionally sit back and kind of think about what was going on musically, and pick out the layers. They give you loads of layers to play with cerebrally, so you can go in there and really go, oh, what's happening with this sound? Oh, it's doing this. Some interesting sort of like grinding beats, which sort of brought me back to the Third Eye Foundation reference that I thought of. But yeah, a strong like Flying Saucer Attack influence as well, and even Crescent, which was like another kind of in that sort of vein. I think comes into play too for me, listening to the record. The track that stood out for me, like I think you mentioned it towards the end, that second last track, the 12-minute Fatal Sisters Opened Umbrella. I loved that track. I thought that was incredible. It was, but to me, it was like a almost like a drone doom post rock track as
That's
opposed to a
funny.
shoegaze. Yeah.
That's funny because my adjectives for that song was sweet, cosmic, dissonance, very odd.
But the way that they crescendo, because you know me, I love a good crescendo, and so
I know you do.
they kind of lull you in. You're like, oh, this is not. I'm on a babbling brook. I'm just floating down a stream. This is all right. And then they just like slam you and build this wall, and you're like, uh-oh, I just fell off a cliff. But then you're flying. So there's this really interesting progression in that song that kind of pulled everything together for me. Tracks up to that point, I liked. There was some cool stuff. You mentioned the "All You Need Is Love" was not true or something like that. That was a really nice song. That was the one that captured me initially. But then once I got down to Fatal Sisters, I was like, okay, this is the track. This is the one that I'm like, if I'm thinking, almost like, to me, it's almost towards post rock. And so that idea of the really, really beautiful swell that can happen. They do it more noisily, more abrasively, sure. But after you've listened to all of those other tracks, you get to that, and it almost sounds soothing compared to some of the earlier tracks on the album. And so that one kind of
worked. You nailed it. And it's crazy because when you listen on headphones, I mean, I was picking up like little twinkling of piano keys.
Yep.
And it did not fit. It had a very jazz approach to it.
Yeah.
And trying this dissonances and trying to merge it with cacophony and it just seemed, it's an experience. And if you know this album and you have any thoughts of yourself, go ahead and put it down there in the comment box. We want to hear all about it. It's yeah, I forgot how long the album's. I think like an hour long.
Yeah, it's over an hour. It's like 62 or 63 minutes, I think, when I put it on.
To me, I kept thinking of my buddy who did radio at KZSU Stanford. That's all I kept thinking. Like, this is college radio. Boom, right there.
Yeah,
like at 2 a.m.
for a drone ambient show kind of thing, or like a noise rock show or something like that.
Yeah,
where people are kind of expecting it. But it was kind of it's a genre, and like I said, right away I went back to sort of that 90s cranky Flying Saucer Attack, Third Eye. Like people that enjoy that stuff, I think would appreciate Zinli Supreme, this record in particular. Yeah.
So I got to ask,
my score,
top 50.
Top 50. See, but to me, it's more to do with classification. I don't find that it's shoegaze or dream pop enough to be on that list. To me, it belongs more in like an experimental noise or drone category than it does shoegaze. At the end of the day, I liked it. Like your scoring of it, I think I wasn't doing the meticulous scoring that you were doing, so I gave it like a 3.5 out of 5. So I think I enjoyed probably 4 to 5 tracks off of it. The rest of it was neat, was cool.
All right.
But yeah, just maybe the wrong list. I don't know. Like I said, Pitchfork, I find that sometimes they just do things to be as hipstery as possible.
Well, for our next episode, it'll be interesting to see which way we want to go. And maybe we do another shoegaze, maybe we do dream pop, post rock, something. And if maybe the audience tells us, give us an album, and we review it. However,
do that too. Yeah, that way we could argue. We could argue more for Vishala that way. We agreed too much on this one, I think, for Vishala. She probably want us to get into a bit more of a heated discussion.
A little sparring there. You're going to get the final word here. Anything else coming down the line for you? You have another show coming up?
Yep. So I got a show this Thursday, usual time, so 10 p.m. Eastern on DKFM. Like I said, I got 2 hours worth of music that I've got to pare down to 1 hour shortly so I can record it. So much great new music out there. So definitely tune in to DKFM if you get the chance. Other than that, people can always contact me over Facebook and Instagram, and I've got my Melomania Safety Zone Mixcloud page for past episodes that you can always click on and enjoy. And if ever anybody wants to reach out for a nerdy music chat, I'm always game for that too.
You are a this has been such a joy to have, and speaking with you about your passion for vinyl, your connections to historical moments in your life at these bands and shows, and like you remember all these specific details and nuances, and I think it's just you bring a lot of flavor to the conversation, so I appreciate that.
Music's
and
done that for me.
one more plug for your, if you don't mind, people seeking help, any psychotherapy.
I mean, that's where my head is at right now. So I'm spending a lot of my time as a psychotherapist. And so if anybody in Ontario, so the province of Ontario, is looking for online mental health support or in person in Toronto, then please reach out to me over Facebook, over Instagram. I mean, I'm here to help, and it's been a wonderful experience this past month helping people so far, and I'm looking to do more of that. So reach out if you feel the need or to help somebody else.
And I'm gonna, since we're talking about getting help, this has been very helpful for me. And it's a little dramatic, of course, I'm saying that, but I showed you this earlier. This is The Creative Act, A Way of Being by Rick Rubin. I've been pulling little nuggets from his writing and trying to apply it to my own life, and how he distills things down to its most simple state. And he talks a lot about the creative process and how he works with artists. I don't know if you know this, but he doesn't know shit about music. He doesn't read music. He knows nothing. And he's very honest about it.
Yeah.
But what he's good at, he knows how to feel his way through music. And you can listen to his podcast on YouTube. Just really good stuff. So check that one out. All righty, Simon Leclerc. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been awesome.
Yeah, thank you everyone for tuning in. My name is W, aka William, host of the High Art on the Edge page. We'll see you for episode number 7 in July. Take care, everyone. Keep listening to great music. It's always a good thing. Ciao.